Well, thank you very much, Marty. Good afternoon, good early evening to everybody, and maybe even some good mornings out there. My name is Alan Van Loo. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Intrommune Therapeutics. And what we effectively are is a platform approach to therapeutic treatments for all food allergies while patients brush their teeth. We are developing a simple, safe, and elegant solution that utilizes a fully functioning toothpaste that fits right into your daily routine. And in addition, we're addressing one of the biggest issues that's facing the entire drug industry, and that is adherence. Interestingly enough, we live in a world right now where we can get 4K video of Martian dust or send a telescope to a position 1.5 million kilometers away to peer back to the origins of the universe. But at the moment, mankind's best approach to food allergies, most notably food allergies, is avoidance. This adds fear not only to the patients, but to the entire family and caregivers that are really surrounded by this issue on a day-to-day, week-over-week, month-over-month basis. Given the significant social impact of this developing therapy, we're looking to deliver, as I mentioned, a fully functioning toothpaste with embedded proteins. And the first case for us will be peanuts in a therapy that we know already works, but only if you do it consistently. And therein lies the elegance. The key from here on in is execution and developing the pipeline. We are already in phase 1 and in peanut allergic patients. So given that execution is really the focus, our CEO, Michael Nelson, has really put together an experienced team to deliver on this potential. You can see the amount of raised and the fact that they've worked on dozens of clinical programs. And this team is harnessing its focus to really tackle a huge unmet need. We're going to focus on the data in a second, but suffice to say over 220 million people worldwide suffer from food allergies. I would argue that Intrommune is a low risk, or a de-risked, I should say, biotech opportunity utilizing toothpaste as a drug delivery platform. You're going to hear me say that consistently over. Peanut is our first product, but we're going to be focusing on the other foods as well. And we have ring-fenced that global IT. And as a result, since there is minimal competition, meaning there's only one peanut allergy product on the market right now, we expect high returns on investment. The only comparator that has a public product is a company called Immune that was purchased by Nestle for $2.6 billion. So we are Intrommune. We are raising $40 million for our Series B with the focus to be $10 million of debt to start out with embedded warrants. Just spending a very quick minute on this. This is the team that we really put together over the last year and a half. Michael, his background is an attorney and then investment banker, and then really turning his focus to tech transfer, where he met our inventor, Dr. Bill Reisacker. Along the way, we brought along Stuart Lesh, who is our chief commercial officer. And a few people will say, well, isn't it a little early to bring on a commercial officer? But we would argue history is replete with examples of drugs being brought to market that A, did not necessarily fit with the patient's expectation or what the market was looking for. So having him as a guiding voice is incredibly important. And additionally, we have Professor Dr. Sergey Tria, who has worked on over 150 partnership agreements globally over the last 20 years, along with the rest of the team. Just a quick moment, if I might, with regarding to our advisors. On the business side, two quick names of note is Yodi Marengo, both on the investment banking side and on the clinical side, and Tanya Winders, who is the CEO of the Allergy and Asthma Network. On the science side, we're chaired by our inventor, Dr. Bill Reisacker, as well as Sharon Chitra of Stanford University and Lara Gross of Dallas Allergy and Asthma Center. So let's start out at a 30,000-foot view and really get an understanding of what this large addressable and, in our opinion, multi-opportunity market looks like. Globally, there are over 220 million people who suffer from food allergies. Intrommune's primary focus will be in the US, of which 26 million adults and 6 million children suffer from food allergies. By and large, 9 foods, suffice it to say, cover 90% of all food allergies. And given the blurb that you can see from global data, the initial focus for us will be on peanut allergies, with an astounding 1,700-fold increase in the decade starting in 2017. We feel that taking a sort of a closer look primarily at the US market and specifically the peanut allergy market, we see our TAM at just under 7.4 billion. Now, how did we come up with that number? 6 million people in the United States are peanut allergic, of which 1.6 million are children, of which 1 million are diagnosed. If we take a very conservative approach and assume 60% of the child population and only 2% of the adult population, you can see how we get that number based upon just under 700,000 of the initial serviceable market. And to wit, insurance coverage already exists. Palforzia, which is Aimmune's drug, already has coverage just under $11,000, but we would add our product and our technology, reduces the adverse effects, has better adherence, increased efficacy, and in the end really is a multi-product platform. Additionally, if I might add, statistics research by the US suggests that food allergies cost the US economy approximately $25 billion annually. And furthermore, we anticipate approximately 100,000 new patients per year in the US alone. I'm happy to introduce you to our product, INT-301, a novel and simplified approach to allergy desensitization. You're going to hear the term OMIT throughout the presentation, and that stands for oral mucosal immunotherapy. And as we said, we are developing this as a fully functioning toothpaste with embedded proteins that delivers this safe and simple and effective solution. Just to spend a moment on the science behind what we're really developing here is, as the toothpaste gets introduced into the mouth, it, along with the proteins embedded, liquefy into a slurry, which then contacts the entire oral cavity. The proteins within that slurry then ionically bind to the surface of the mucosa within the first 15 to 30 seconds, and then interact with a very specific type of dendritic cell called the Langerhans cells, which then translate key identifiers on their surface and then travel straight down into the regional lymph nodes. To be noted, these proteins are extremely large and therefore do not necessarily move into the bloodstream. And that is one of the key differentiators for us in keeping adverse events and anaphylaxis as close to zero as possible. Now, within the lymph nodes, Langerhans cells then interact with naive T cells, which they in turn differentiate themselves and then migrate back out to the entire body and educate the immune system, which then begins to tamp down that immune response. And as with our protocol of updosing, when you unknowingly eat something that you're allergic to, we're going to reduce, if not remove, that anaphylaxis event. And this mechanism, I want to add, is really the driver for the entire platform. So as we turn our focus in our pipeline to the other 9 food groups, it's still leveraging the same technology and the same concept. You're going to hear, as I mentioned, OMIT, which is our oral mucosal immunotherapy. Other terminology that you should be somewhat familiar with as we go through this industry is OIT, which is oral immunotherapy. Think of it as spreading a protein on a pudding or a yogurt and then having to eat it, as well as EPIT, which is epicutaneous immunotherapy. Think of that as sort of a skin patch, kind of like a Nicorette, but in this case, really focused on food allergies, specifically peanut. We like to think of OMIT really as standing on the shoulders of the giants that have come before us in developing these other products. But we have learned their lessons and we have found what we think is an easier way and iterated to make a solution that is better, safer, and frankly, from our perspective, more elegant. Specifically, we're really very closely related to SLIT. We consider ourselves a supergroup to SLIT because in SLIT, which is sublingual immunotherapy, you're effectively dropping drops underneath your tongue. But notice that within that SLIT technology, you're only exposing 6% of the Langerhans cells that exist in the mouth. Through the toothpaste mechanism, you can see we really get such a higher effective coverage of those Langerhans cells, which we believe will ultimately make us much more efficacious. Additionally, SLIT, which has been around for easily 100 years, has at the moment no standardization. There's no sort of structural process to it. It's very much left up to the individual doctors to supply and to create that technology. To further bolster our sort of super group and standing on the shoulders of giants, you can see that there is a copious amount of safety and efficacy studies, which really for us set the precedent for INT-301. Not only have there been studies done up and down the demographic age, but you can see in terms of duration of the studies, everything from short-term to long-term has done. And consistently, the findings suggest that SLIT significantly is superior in safety and efficacy to other types of, let's call it allergy desensitization. Here is our product. Again, a simple, safe, and unique user experience. Within the single packaging unit, we're really ensuring accurate dosing and decreased risk of misuse or dosing mix-up, which ultimately allows then for portability and on the go. Again, by using the brushing, you're doing two things. One, you're moving the proteins around the mouth, thus getting exposure to the Langerhans cells. But what we really think is the beauty of it is at the end of the therapy / brushing your teeth, it is socially ingrained in all of us to expel the API or spit out the toothpaste, which then acts as yet another check on potentially systemic adverse events. And in the end, we strongly believe that since it's a social practice, we're embedding incredibly high amounts of compliance and adherence. As a side note, we're currently working also on identifying how we might be able to partner with electric toothbrush manufacturers, where we will then be able to gather enormous amounts of data of use, of duration, of how often, connecting that with an app via Bluetooth. In the end, we feel that that is going to bring us incredibly close, not only to the patients, but to the community as a whole. All this technology has been really well ring-fenced. You see, we have exclusive global IP. You can see where our global portfolio resides. Effectively, think of it as 2 patent families, a total of 35 patents in total. But the first family really focuses on toothpaste and allergens, delivering immunotherapy specifically for food allergies. And then secondly is for the formulation to stabilize those allergens within the toothpaste. You don't want the toothpaste to be too viscous or too thick, or it has to be something that people will use on a day-to-day basis and really acts as a functioning toothpaste. Currently, we have global.
Alan, there was a question from Rob Colorino. Rob?
Sure.
Rob, are you there? Well, maybe Rob isn't there.
No problem.
Yeah. Rob?
Yeah, if he pops back on, just give me a shout.
So on the IP protection.
Go ahead. I'm not hearing you, Marty. What's the question?
Can you look at the messages on the chat?
Can you comment on IP protection? It's a little difficult while I'm presenting. Would you mind reading it to me if you don't mind?
Yes. Can you comment on the IP protection here? Interesting chemistry for a common food staple such as peanuts.
Sure. I mean, I can say more other than the patents are again really focused on utilizing toothpaste as the delivery vehicle for delivering these proteins related to food allergies specifically. And you can see where the global portfolio lies. That really is that first patent family. And the second patent family is really learning how to stabilize those allergens within the toothpaste. So in conjunction, both those have coverage as it stands right now to 2034, but we're looking to expand that to 2042. But one additional thought on that, and I don't know if he has a follow-up question, really what we're looking at is our innovation pipeline is really going to be able to really push out that IP protection for years to come. Does that suffice, or a follow-up there, Marty?
I don't know if Rob is there, he can speak, but otherwise I would just move on to your presentation.
Okay, we can always come back to it. Yep. I'm not going anywhere. Since the FDA knows that what we're doing, I mean, effectively works because we live in this super group. We already have SLIT data, OIT, which is the oral immunotherapy that Palforzia exists on the technology. We did not have to necessarily follow the same traditional phase 1 pathways. We had a very highly collaborative relationship with the FDA. We did not have to do any tox review, no PK, and no animal models. So that really bolstered and really created a significant amount of momentum for us to really push and develop. I'll leave this out as a deck for people to go in, but if I might summarize and give a bit of a highlight, the primary focus for phase 1B for the FDA always is safety. And within the cohorts that we have already completed or are near completing, we feel we've answered that question. And therefore, we've decided to move forward. The FDA has already approved our amended phase 1B protocol and now has allowed us to explore our estimated maximum tolerated dose, which I might add is less than 1/3 of the only existing product on the market to date without ingestion. And additionally, we anticipate to further engage with the FDA in Q1 of this year to see if we might be able to get more efficacy data within our existing protocol. Taking a bit of a snapshot from a financial standpoint, our Series A closed effectively Q3 of last year, and you can see who our investors were. And it's really, in my opinion, very impressive with the $6 million that was raised, what we were able to accomplish. Obviously, securing the global rights for OMIT, which is the toothpaste delivery mechanism for all food allergies, or the main 9 food allergies, I should say, the formulation for our product, getting the IND through, and effectively paying for the original protocol of the phase 1B. As I mentioned at the start of the presentation, we are now raising $40 million. And the focus of that $40 million will be to, hopefully in the second half of this year, launch our phase 2, and then really focus on CMC implementation. When looking at some of the products and some of the products that are still in the clinic, one of the biggest issues consistently is maybe not fully getting your CMC right. And that's what we've really learned, again, from those that have come before us, is really to dot our I's and cross our T's. And then in the end, ultimately looking for avenues, not only for liquidity, but also for strategic partnerships, and effectively maybe even getting into the public markets. So what does that leave us, or where does that leave us in the big picture? From a valuation projection perspective, we offer 2 examples post phase 1B. 2 companies, DBV, which is a French company that works on EPIT, or the EPIT technology. Again, that's the skin patch for food allergies. They had a valuation of $145 million coming out of their phase 1B, but with complicated manufacturing, no public comps at the time, and frankly, limited evidence of efficacy. Similarly, Immunomic was sold for a valuation of $300 million, with additional 10% royalties. And if you DCF those royalties, the entire package was probably closer to $500 million. Say again?
Keep on going.
Okay. Closer to $500 million, but that was a DNA vaccine. So that, in our opinion, had incredibly high risk, especially in terms of germline effects. So looking at it from an expected 12-month forecast, we can easily see ourselves in the 300 to 400 million with significant upside. Again, and I reiterate, safe, simple, controlled, built-in adherence, a bit of an ESG component ensuring social and health impact, and then numerous synergies and partnerships, as I mentioned. Doing a little bit of a deeper dive and really comparing, or I should say highlighting the differences and the similarities to a certain extent, with the only product that has been approved by the FDA for food allergies, and specifically peanut allergies, is Palforzia by Aimmune. And they were purchased by Nestle in the beginning of 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, for $2.6 billion. I might add that the technology that they're utilizing is OIT, which again is you have to carry a satchel to wherever you're going. If you say to lunch, you have to break it open and you have to pour it over a semi-solid food daily, be it a yogurt or a pudding, and just start thinking about how that relates, in our opinion, inconvenient delivery system relative to a target audience or to our target market, which is really pediatrics and adolescents. Additionally, 14% of the people or the patients that use Palforzia end up with some kind of significant adverse event, be it required EpiPen use or having to go to the emergency room. Because fundamentally, if you think about it, people who are allergic to, in this case, peanuts, don't really find comfort in eating the thing that makes them allergic. So there's a bit of a psychological barrier as well, along with these increased AEs as well as REMS. And many patients will have to take this product for life. Very simply, and I'll leave that to the audience to digest, we think relative to the other products that are either in the pipeline or on the market, we have it on simplicity, safety, and ultimately efficacy. And in the end, if I might sum, we are a revolutionary patented commercial grade toothpaste, fully functioning, but in the end, we are a drug delivery platform with expected greater efficacy relative to SLIT. We cover 12 times the mucosal coverage, targets the entire surface. And just as an additional thought, SLIT, which we had shown through those studies, had a similar efficacy as OIT at only 2 milligrams relative to 300 milligrams for Palforzia. And we strongly feel we are going to be much closer to the 2 milligrams without ingestion than we are to the 300. Positive financials, expected to be safe with little to no epinephrine use, built-in adherence, and in the end, and I re-stress, a platform for multiple food allergy treatments down the road. Thank you very much, Marty, and thank you everybody for watching and listening. We really appreciate it.
Alan, just a couple of questions. Great job, by the way. So I'm sorry. So the payer is insurance?
Correct.
And there's a code already for this?
There is, for Palforzia.
And what's the reimbursement for that?
I can't speak 100% because the product came out at the beginning of COVID. And if you remember on that slide, when it was purchased with no revenues. And as we understand it, Nestle and Immune have really focused on delivering the product when we were coming out of COVID, which everyone knows has been extended. But to that point, it's really important to note that when you're taking Palforzia, you effectively have to go to your allergist, your immunologist, whoever is dispensing it, and spend approximately half to 3/4 of a day there to get the updosing. So it's really not only inconvenient in terms of how you take it once you're on maintenance, but every time you take it, it's effectively a half to 3/4 of a day sitting in the doctor's office.
So there's no market price at this point?
Well, there is a payer price of $11,000 in terms of what insurance will come, but what I can't comment on, at least truthfully, is what the copay or something is. But I know our directive from Michael, our CEO, is obviously we're using that as a rudimentary guide to where we're coming in at. But in the end, the goal has always been, we've got to get this market to product, starting in the US, but then globally, because this really
is that really 11,000 annually or for one application? Okay,
no,
great.
Annually per patient.
And what was the exit again? I know you have a platform, so you can apply this same technology to multiple other uses.
Yeah,
what's the?
Well, I mean, obviously, we think by and large we're going to be better, if not more, comp than Palforzia when our time is right. But we are effectively right now in the tail end of our phase 1B, and we're really looking to get into phase 2. So if everything goes as planned, there's no reason why we shouldn't be a billion plus company in the next 24 months easily.
Fantastic, great. Well, listen, great job.
Thank you.
Like to see the progress you guys are making, and looking forward to hearing more about you guys. So